And it's Transform Your Relationships Live. I'm Laura Rubinstein here with the amazing and wonderful Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. Hi, Rhoberta.
Hi, Laura. What a topic we have today.
Heavy? A little heavy.
Yeah, it's heavy, it's full, it's rich, and it's scary. So I'm looking forward to this. How
Yeah.
about you?
Oh, I'm very curious. Well, we've been in this pandemic for COVID for so long, and it's definitely exacerbated or amplified people's emotions, especially and any kind of stressor was there before. I think we saw a lot of additional stress being added to it. So it made it like amplified. And I think that's the case in the sense of anything that's going on emotionally as well. And so I'm really looking forward today to learning more about from you the differences of what we're seeing out there emotionally and mentally, from depression and anxiety to the
Yeah.
psychosis and mental illness and abuse that we talked about last time.
Yes, well, I hope everybody had a listen to last time because we got into some really interesting areas. And of course, when change occurs where things are out of your control, when you're not the one who's making the choices, that adds stress immediately. So you get an order that says, you can't do this, or you must do that, or you are deprived of doing this, or whatever. It's going to exacerbate stress because just the general change of what's available to us to do, right? Um, Causes some people to be out of their ordinary routine, to have to make major shifts around children going to school or people going to the office, or how you acquire your groceries, or how you take care of an aging relative. I mean, every single piece of life was impacted.
It's like layers.
Yes, yes. And so if it affected your work, and it affected your children, it affected your home life, it affected your extended family, it affected your health, perhaps because maybe you have a pre-existing condition and you became very concerned about that. You could just be knee deep in a pile of things that could raise your anxiety or put you into a depression. And then you have feelings of fear, you have feelings of anger, you have feelings of worry, you have numbness, maybe you're distracting yourself, you're frustrated. All of these levels of things add up just for people who are not troubled by pre-existing mental conditions.
And I noticed that, you know, even yeah, if you're not troubled, but you have certain ways of coping with your own stress, we were restricted in certain ways. So if you were going out and being with people or shopping or trying to do something that was involving other people, really, then to lower your stress, or even the massage or whatever, those were impacted too. So it became a very, very stressful. It has been a very, very stressful time. On top of, I think before even the COVID pandemic, we had an epidemic of depression and anxiety going on. I have never had a time in my life where I'm hearing young people all on medications or talking about how they can't sleep at night and how they have anxiety. I mean, this is people in their teens and 20s that are, like, what's that about? We never heard about that. I don't know if it didn't exist or it's just exaggerated now, or it existed and we didn't know.
Yeah, well, I think the things that were present in 2019 were magnified and elevated and accelerated in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And, our world has changed a great deal in terms of the way people interact with one another. Now, I don't have the study at hand, but I remember in about 2012, there was a research paper done looking at the number of people diagnosed with personality disorders in the first decade of this century. And it had gone up significantly.
Hmm.
I mean, significantly by 4 or 5%. And if I remember it correctly. And what's difficult about that, on the surface, that might be problematic, but people with personality disorders don't go to be diagnosed. So that meant that those rising numbers, alarmingly rising numbers, were among people who were forced to get a diagnosis. They went into a mental hospital. They had a 7:30 evaluation for the court. They went into a prison. Maybe they wanted to save their marriage and went to a psychiatrist or psychologist who was able to diagnose them. But then if you think that those extenuating circumstances are what that increase was based on, and you extrapolate that to the general population, whoa, right? So it used to be like maybe 1 in 10 people, maybe in the 1990s, early 90s, you could say 1 in 10 people that, no, sorry, 1 in 30 or 40 people that you met was going to have that situation. Now it's down to 1 to 18 to 25%.
Wow.
So people who have those problems had children and then affected more individuals. You know, if they had more than one child, the chances are that they would affect those children and things would change. And the people that were abused by those people who didn't become like them would have some anxiety, perhaps some depression, a plethora of possible things that could be affecting them. So then you take all that and then you add restriction, isolation, minimization of what you're able to do, how you can go to the store and see another human and feel connected. Very, very difficult. Very difficult. So if you had a pre-existing predilection, diagnosis or not, and then you add all of the restriction and the limitation and all the pieces that people experienced in various parts of the world through the pandemic, exacerbation. Of course we're going to see that. And then that trickles through a family. And they're all under the same roof, perhaps.
So how can we recognize these various parts of mental health, whether it's anxiety, depression on one end, psychosis or radicalization, like all these different things we're seeing?
Well, that's a huge question. But one of the things is the way that they respond to everyday events. You know, if things are out of proportion, like I absolutely can't get out of bed. That's out of proportion to regular daily life. Or I'm afraid to go out of the house. Or I don't want to go to a social event, even if it's socially distanced and I have 3 masks on. You know, you start to notice that things are out of proportion and they are blown out of proportion. Then the level of intensity of being around that person has been affected. You know, sometimes you'll talk to somebody and their speech is speeded up. Maybe it has a higher pitch. It has a louder sound and a greater intensity. Big sign there. What's going on? What is happening to you? Withdrawal is another sign. I don't want to eat. I don't want to sit at the table. I don't want to be part of this. I'm going out to the shed. I don't want to come out. I'm going into my room. Don't knock. Don't even bring food. You start to see things like that. And then we see acting out behaviors. Why did we have this rash of Karen videos? Here we have people who were maybe nicely tamed at home, behaving in relatively decent fashion, but you give them extra stress, you give them extra restriction, which is usually what they're responding and reacting to, and they have no filter. Now, of course, there's the other side of it. People got interested and they got a little more camera happy because there wasn't that
I have
much
more
going
time to
on.
do that. Yeah.
So, if I'm in Trader Joe's and somebody's having a hissy fit, why not stop and take a video? Because, socially distanced in here and this is kind of interesting. I haven't seen anything interesting for a while. So, but we see that because we've had polarization. And that's another big thing that happened. We had it for the last 5 years. We have it now, but you add polarization and the idea that the adamant unwillingness to entertain new ideas, and then you put it into a pandemic situation where someone tells you that you have to wear a mask or you can't do this or that, and then like all of this, how dare you tell me what I can do, and no sense of the common good or the greater good for all, or the idea that it is for a while, it is not forever. No, they don't entertain those things. It's, how am I being inconvenienced at this moment by you breathing at this moment? And
Never
so
here. It's always there.
always, well, when you're dealing with any kind of hijackal behavior, it's always somebody else's fault. So that's a given. That's a given. But people who have various kinds of biochemical imbalances, they have a distorted perception of reality anyway. So they're seeing things very, very differently on a daily basis, on the regular, you know. And if they're well medicated and it's working for them, they won't have that. But what happens with people with bipolar disorder, things like that, there are side effects that go with those medications, and they feel good when they're on them, but they don't like the side effects. So they figure that now that they're feeling better and they don't like the side effects, they'll just go off it, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're already losing touch where your thoughts and emotions don't connect to reality, which is basically what psychosis is, you can get pushed over that edge. And then you will do outrageous things. And then people will take a video of you. And that's not helpful. I mean, certainly it's helpful if a crime is being committed, but it's not helpful to see a bunch of Karen videos. You know, it really isn't helpful. All you have to know is there are people who are outrageous and in a heightened state of anxiety, and therefore their brain is not connected to their mouth. And they will then say or do anything, and they're very in the moment. So why do we need a whole rash of videos to watch people behaving badly? What's up with us that is entertaining to us?
Oh, it's always been my question, even in the news. Why do we have need to see so much bad news?
Well,
Why is that what pushes us
well, I
and
can
triggers us?
understand from a news point of view, you know, if something affects a lot of people or a particular area. But to take a video of a person going shopping, behaving outrageously, and plastering it all over YouTube, what good does that possibly do?
Right.
And what good does it do you to sit and watch Karen videos? You know, like what? I mean, you laugh, or you think you're better than they are, or you identify more outrageous behaviors. What kind of energy are you contributing to your life by sitting watching Karen videos? But, you know, if Karen has a gun, probably a good time to take out the video camera.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't need to see, and I did see this, I don't need to see a video of an elderly woman who's having some mental issues, refusing to put on a mask and sitting down in the entrance to Costco and refusing to move. I don't need to see that video. Who needs to see that video?
No,
So it's a
that's
question we have to ask ourselves, you know, why the fascination with people behaving badly?
well, I think it's this addiction to right and wrong we have.
Maybe.
And to not feeling our own stuff and taking responsibility. See, it's out there, it's not here. So
Right.
it's another distraction tool. That's my hypothesis going on right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's happening.
Right.
And so it's important for us to think about, like,
So
why do we have so much exacerbation, but why do we have such a fascination with watching people who are behaving in unhealthy ways?
right, and acting out from their mental illness or their psychosis. I mean, it's educational to one degree. If we're adding the educational component, I know with the Karen video, I learned how women weaponize race. That was very educational for me when I heard people commenting on that. I don't need to see every single video, but two or three for the purpose of understanding it and how that works as a weapon is very informative, because then it's just like understanding gaslighting. I can understand when I see it, and I can intervene or call it out, if and be an ally in that way. But if it's if it's a woman who's and I'm learning about this woman that she obviously, like, if I'm a first responder, if I want to be an honorable citizen, and I see something like that, I want it to come with a component that tells me, okay, if I see this, this is likely what it is, or this is a sign of what it could be. And what can I do? Do I call over security? Do I run away as fast as I can? What is my responsibility, and what is the best thing for that person and for myself in that? That's my only purpose for me for seeing videos like that. I think other people like to make judgments and say, maybe the tall poppy syndrome, like, at least I'm not like that. I feel better about myself. It could be anything, but I don't think that's as useful as really taking it to the next step and say, okay, well, I want to go find out about mental illness now. And, or, and so I wish there would be some responsible reporting along with it.
Yeah, well, I think the point is really well taken. Certainly, I've watched them. I want to see what's up, but it's if for educational purposes, great. It's a good thing, just as you're pointing out. But for entertainment purposes, just sitting there laughing at them and then saying, "Oh, isn't this outrageous?" And did you see this one, or did you see that one? And then they have all kinds of comments going on. That's when I think it tips. It's no longer educational. It's turned into some kind of entertainment that, as you say, maybe you feel better than that person, or you whatever, but you're laughing at another human being's behavior, and that's not always a very healthy thing to be doing.
Yeah.
But we have had a year of tremendous collective damage to our mental health. And as one person said, there is no vaccine for mental health. So it's situational. Certainly, some people are born with difficulties. Other people, it's situational and learned. Other people, it's acquired later in life, or it shows up later in life. And so we have to be aware that we're all different, and we have different circumstances of birth, different circumstances of biochemistry, different life experiences and reactions and responses to those, trauma that was inflicted on us, trauma that we perhaps were part of. I mean, how could we have, last month, 45 mass shootings and not be affected? I mean, there's trauma for many people who have already some anxiety to be looking over their shoulder when they go into a grocery store or a Walmart or a school or anywhere that mass shootings have been frequented. I mean, it just shows our inability to deal with the mental health issue, because you can't ask everybody to take a test for mental health. Like, are
Maybe
you
we should
allowed on
make
the
it
streets?
standardized testing in throughout our childhood education and
Well, I
beyond.
mean, well, they certainly do look for things like that, but we don't diagnose children with emotional problems. We certainly deal with them, but we, as a mental health community, we may see tendencies going in directions, but we don't diagnose. Um, the ideal time is after 18, but sometimes it's pretty clear earlier on. I remember I used to work in a facility. I was doing research, and I was working in a facility for, at that time, they call them children with emotional disturbance, and that was my specialty at the time. And I remember a little 7-year-old boy. I mean, there was no question what was going to happen to him. I mean, he had fetal alcohol syndrome. He'd been abandoned at birth. He'd been in foster homes. He liked to string up cats and set them on fire for pleasure. I mean, he was always looking for something to destroy, always looking for a mean thing to say or do, just acting out all the time. Well, there's very little help that you can offer a child like that. So you know what the diagnosis is going to likely be, and who's going to look after that after 18? You know, they get out of the school system or age out of foster care, then what? And we keep having cutbacks in mental health, and where people are closing facilities, or the inability to cope with. I mean, how many people who are homeless also have a mental disorder,
Yeah, a
right?
lot.
So is sort of being normalized and marginalized, and isolation happening, and then laughed at and used as entertainment. You know, we've kind of skewed the whole thing somewhat. And it's hard to have compassion for people who behave badly on a regular basis. I know. I mean, think about that little boy. He's 7 years old. He should be getting love. He should be having all kinds of things that he was deprived of. And very unlovable, you know? Like, just wants to hurt you.
Right.
Like, you get close to him and you say, "How are you doing?" And he hits you in the face, you know? So mental health is a big issue to deal with on every level, even thinking about it when you're not close to it.
Now, you mentioned some signs, but I didn't know which signs were of which. Was it a mental illness or of just anxiety and depression or psychosis? Or I know we're also seeing a lot of radicalization of people.
Mm-hmm.
And there's,
Well, yeah, when you're feeling alienated, when you're feeling isolated, maybe you feel you don't belong. Maybe as a teenager, young person, you feel like you have no social group, nobody understands you. Then you add the fact that you can't see your friends anyway. What's appealing about going online and having someone tell you how awful the world is and how these people have to be eradicated and what you should do if you were a good person who understood that makes it more likely that somebody who is already leaning in that direction and feeling isolated or marginalized is going to look for belonging. It's a basic need that we have. If we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, belonging is prime, and surviving and then belonging. And so we look for groups to belong to. That's what gives us the whole gang thing, is kids need a sense of a place to belong. And if it's really powerful and they're feeling marginalized, and someone says, well, all you have to do is go and shoot a neighbor and you can belong to our group, that can be attractive.
mm,
So then you think about the pandemic isolating people further. Well, how do you belong, right? So you coop up a person who has that kind of thought, and that is one of the contributing factors to mass shootings. You know, I've gone online and I've watched every video of every mass shooting, and I've been on the dark web, and they're lauding and praising the people who did this, and wasn't that great, and look at the technique, and you could get this gun, and here's how to get it under the radar, and you can do all of this, or you could blow this up, and here's the recipe. And then you feel like, wow, I've got this group of people who are all thinking the same way as I do, and all I have to do is stay in this mindset, which is attractive to me because I already feel the need to destroy or the need to get attention. Well, that's an attention getter. You know, Timothy McVeigh got a lot of attention. So, you know, all of these things are exacerbated during this time. So when I was talking about things like to watch for, those are things that you can notice. Maybe someone's having anxiety or depression. It's not clinical. It may not last. It may just be a response right now. But when you see that, that's the time to reach out. If in fact it is an exacerbating circumstance that is leading to a diagnosis of a condition, we want to be able to get on that as early as possible and get them some help. So we need to be watching for that. And it's hard to calibrate. You know, if you've got a teenager who's holed up doing video games, and now you get in the pandemic, and now the only video games that they're interested in are the ones that that have mass killings and horrible things. I don't play those video games. I have no idea. But if you get all involved with that, and then you talk to other people about how great it is and how many people you killed and all, it has an effect.
Yeah.
It really does, and it sends you looking in the wrong places in the world.
So where do you advise people start to calm the anxiety, to deal with someone who might be starting down a path of a mental illness?
Well, I think the important thing is to be present, don't pry, but don't quit. If you've got a teenager or you've got an adult loved one who is slipping away in some way, isolating or becoming confused or becoming more and more agitated and angry or more and more anxious, then be present for them. Don't be judgmental. Don't ask, why are you behaving like that, questions. To endeavor to normalize, and then be able to say, I think that doesn't feel good. You're telling me it doesn't feel good. How about we see if we can get some help? Because I'm not sure what to do, but I'll go with you and see if we can get some help. Because blame is never going to work. Shame is never going to work. That's the thing they're most afraid of. So becoming collaborative with them, walking with them, being a support person without judgment, those are very important things to do. And also, in the extreme, a loving thing to do sometimes is to call for help when something goes sideways. I think we have a problem, whether we're dealing with mental health, which is, of course, related to domestic violence and all, but sometimes we don't want to call for help when it would really be the most loving thing to do, to nip it in the bud, to stop it early on, to have a big stop sign come up and say, no, you can't do that, and to have 3 people come and tell you can't do that. And if you continue to do that, we'll need to get you some help. We'll need to take you to another place to stay. We'll need to do a few things. Sometimes that's a wake-up call.
Mm.
Sometimes you can't do anything. I mean, how many people walk out of mental facilities out into the street, throw away their medication, and there you are. You're having people walking down the street having angry conversations with themselves, and you observe it, but you can't do anything about it. Then there's the question of privacy and rights and all of that. It's very, very complicated. As you said, many layers deep. But if you are seeing someone who is having difficulties, read up on it, go and look, see what you can say that will be helpful and not harmful or hurtful. Because really shy away from shaming someone for their behaviors. Try and get underneath and see, why did they respond in that way? See if you can figure that out. See if you can find the triggers and endeavor to take note of them, but not sit on them. These are important things to do. And if you have someone who's suffering in your own home in these situations, keep your mental health in good order too. Get the help that you need in order to deal with someone.
Yeah, and sometimes, take that first step. You were saying a lot of parents wind up passing this on to their kids. The best thing you can do for your kids is take care of your own mental health.
Well, that's right, because you're creating an environment that your children are living within, and they will emulate the ways that you behave. So if you don't take care of your own mental health, you could create an environment, not so much pass it on, but create an environment where the choices are limited as to how to please you as their parents. And then, they're seeing this as their model, and that happens. In those situations, that's not as likely that you're going to get help, because the people who are passing it on don't think they need any help. But if you happen to be the partner of one of those people and you see your children being affected, it's very difficult for you to do something about it. I talk to people all the time about that, and if anyone wants to talk to me about that, you can just go to beaclient.com. But making that discernment, like what can I do? My term hijackals, people who behave like hijackals sometimes will be very abusive to their children, and then their partners are between a rock and a hard place. Like, are they going to blow it up and have home be raging and a horrible place to be and exacerbate that problem in order to get help for a child who is being adversely affected? There's a whole field of study called adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, and we have to be aware if we're creating an adverse childhood experience. Very important things to see. And so we don't want to be part of that contributing to that problem. When we're in a home with somebody who perhaps is a parent who has some kind of aberrant behavior or a distorted view of the world, and we realize that the children are being exposed to that, then we sometimes need help to clarify our own thinking and make a plan of what you can possibly do.
Yeah, because when we start taking care of ourselves bit by bit, things can start the upward spiral instead of the downward spiral. And it seems like things have been downward spiraling because people didn't know where to turn. I'm
That's
really
right.
happy to hear more conversations out there, even on public television, and that we're seeing messages like it's okay to
Mm-hmm.
get help, right?
Exactly. Yes, and the more that we realize it's part of the fabric of life, and it's just, some people are short, some people are tall, some people have mental illness, some people don't, and we just need to recognize that it's part of the human experience and to have some compassion, but balance our compassion for others with our compassion for ourselves.
Yeah, that was the word that was going through my head, compassion, and a lot of self-compassion. The more compassion you have for yourself, the more compassion you have for others. But if you're not willing to give it to yourself, you're not going to give it to others.
Well,
So
you may give it to others, but you'll overextend yourself,
right.
and that's where it's truly unhealthy. But, from that point of view, of a balanced point of view of compassion for self versus compassion for others, and then you educate yourself on what's possible. Sometimes tough love comes into this equation, and you may need help and support to take care of your mental health. And, we all have that opportunity, we all have that right, and we all have that responsibility because we're in it together.
We are, and we can help each other if we have that mindset, if we're willing to open up to some help and to knowing that it's normal. Hey, we're all human. We all have emotions. Sometimes we don't know what to do with them. You know what? It's okay to get help. That's
That's
like,
right.
it's like, duh. It's like, if I could, I do, I have a mental health professional on hand at all times. It's like, who can I call that's professional? Not that I can just gossip to or watch another one of those videos. Those don't help, that you were talking about earlier, of the ones that just increase your anxiety versus finding places you can get more calm, more clarity, have a place to express and explore what you're feeling, and then come to some healthy habits or ways of dealing with it, coping mechanisms that will really promote good health. And then we can pass that on instead of, um, you know, getting tighter and tighter and tighter within and frustrated before it comes out in some way that is, like you said, doesn't connect. The emotion doesn't connect to reality.
Right, right. And, be present. Don't get too, be wisely afraid if you think you're in physical danger. I mean, I remember I was principal of a school for at-risk teenagers, and one of the kids in the school, I'd known him since he was little, but, here he is at 17 years old, and he's about 8 inches taller than I am. And every now and again, tables are being upturned, things are breaking, everything is happening. And then we did as much as we could for him. But then one day, I looked at him sideways outside, and he threw me on the ground, and he's kicking me. And at that moment, okay, we cannot deal with this another moment. It is not the school's responsibility. Unfortunately, the parents are going to have to deal with this. The community is going to have to deal with this. You have to know where those lines are. If you have a person in your family who is having problems and they become someone of whom you're afraid, you have to know that the loving thing to do is to get them into the best environment for their safety and mental health as well as yours. And that's the kind, loving thing to do. You're not going to get any points for being the long-suffering person covered in bruises, afraid of their own child or partner.
That's a very scary place to be. So it's okay to reach out and reach out to law enforcement. Is that what you're saying?
Well, law enforcement, reaching out to the medical community through law enforcement, we need a mental health assessment team. We need someone to come because this person is a danger to themselves and others. You can ask for the specific kind of help due to the experience you're having.
Yeah. Well, this has been a heavy topic, but very informative, where we're exploring, what people are really going through, and that there's something to do about it, and that one can take care of themselves and one can stay in compassion and then do the right thing to take care of others.
Yes, well said. All those things are possible. And know that it's the loving thing to do, is to get help for yourself and for others.
Yeah. So hopefully this has been enlightening for everyone watching. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Rhoberta. And we'll see you on your show, Save Your Sanity, on Monday nights, the podcast on YouTube as well, plus the conversation there.
7 o'clock Pacific time every Monday night. Join in.
So if you need a place to belong, that's the place. That's the place.
Yeah. I have a new membership site opening up in a couple of weeks too. So we'll have a whole new place to be together and talk about things. Part
Thanks,
of the
Tracy.
membership is that there are 2 opportunities a month to just ask me anything, come on a group call. And that new membership is going to be $9.99 a month. So it's a really great deal.
Can they find it at your website?
They will be able to as soon as it goes live.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Rhoberta. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Tracy, for your comment. I'm glad it was very informative. Bye for now.
Bye. Thanks, Laura.